Welcome back to another podcast episode. Today I want to talk to you about how you can attract higher paying clients into your business without having to drastically change too much. Now, I've just had a client reach out to me and say, listen, I want to improve my content. It's not quite working. And when we looked into the content, I said to him, what isn't working about it? And obviously a few things came to mind. He said, listen, the hooks, I don't think they're that powerful. I get a bit confused when I'm doing them, like how I should deliver them. The second thing is the content seems to keep attracting lower paying clients. And the third issue is that he was trying to put this content together and make it valuable, but he said it then ended up being way too long. So I said to him, if we're going to shift perspective with this, what we need to think is, who is your ideal client? What do they do for a living? How do they show up in the world? What's their vision? Where do they want to get to? As most people go, okay, I want to do fat loss. I want to talk about losing fat and getting them in great shape. So first of all, we looked at the hooks, and some of his hooks were just very weak. They weren't very descriptive, or they didn't give me like an emotional reason to change. They were just like, are you still making the same mistakes as you made last year? And they felt flat, and the delivery of them was very, are you still making the same mistakes as last year? So there's not really this urgency or tone about it where I feel like it's grabbing my attention. So that was the first thing we looked at, is like, when you deliver a hook, have you put the emphasis into it to make it interesting? Have you made it short and sharp so that I know within 1, 2, 3 seconds that there's a hell of a lot of value in this, and also it's something that I need to watch or listen to, or something that's going to give me value. So that's the first thing that I would always look at. And obviously, you can get viral hooks off of pretty much anywhere. I've got a list of them if you need them. But the main thing is it's not just the actual hook, as in that just the words you say. Visually you need to do something interesting. Can you move something towards or away from the camera? Can you use a prop? Can you move in and out of the scene? Can you get some text flying up? Typically you want a visual hook, an audio hook, obviously that could be you talking or a sound effect, and then you also want some site like a text or something. So within the first 3 seconds, I can see what I'm going to take away from this video. So that was the first thing that we've said that we're going to work on. The second thing was, how do we attract high paying clients? Now, when we looked through his content and results, and obviously get some incredible results, he hadn't really spoken about any of the pain points. And when he did mention them, they were so brief that there was no real explanation of why that was important. So, I'm a dad of 2 kids with 2 businesses to run. There's a lot of pressure, okay? Now, if I just put his Ben, got in great shape, lost 12 kilos for a holiday that was coming up, looks incredible, looks shredded, his arms look jacked, looks in the best shape ever, got 2 businesses, 2 kids, not a lot of time, and he still managed to find a way to do this and get a result. Okay, in a nutshell, you've given me what I've done. But if you're trying to sign up someone who is a high-level CEO or in management, or someone who's on a career path where they're trying to head up the ladder, are they using jacked, shredded, cut? Probably not, right? Are they using the terminology of turning up as a high achiever, being able to perform better at work and with his family? Is he getting more quality downtime, and is energy improved? So when we started looking through the actual message that he had going out to these, typically they were dads that he was working with, what we was noticing is that he wasn't really describing where those people were at so that it can make it relatable. If you just tell them, let's say, for example, I was a carpet cleaner and we came to this house in London and we cleaned the carpets, and after an hour and a half, the carpets were cleaner and the house looked a lot nicer and the customer was really happy. Okay, I'm not going to go paying you to solve my carpet cleaning problems, because you've made it sound like it's just nothing. Whereas if I said, we went to a house in London where a mum of 5 was really struggling to keep the house clean whilst running a business, juggling 5 children, and her husband's been away with work for 6 months. So we came in, and within 2 hours, we managed to turn the house from a house that had been lived in to a house worthy of selling. We spent the time to make sure that the carpets were clean, everything was organised, and we made sure that when the customer and the kid came home, that they had a nice warm environment to come home, bearing in mind the stresses they've got with school and work and just generally not having their dad around. So if you're looking for someone to come into your environment and clean your home and leave it spotless, so when you come in, you feel like you can rest, drop us a DM. You see the difference in that. You've told me about the problems, the pains, everything, and you've spoken to a high level of person. So make sure when you're creating your content that you think about who you're talking to. What's the language that they use? Are they using, these shorter term, phrases and so on? Are you talking to a level of person that you want to work with? And if you don't quite know who they are yet, but you want to work with them, this is where you've got to spend a bit of time thinking about that ideal client. Like, really, who are they? What do they do? What type of language do they use? Because it's all these little details that add up. So when you put the content together and you're going to say, stop doing this if you want a clean carpet, there we go. Like, instantly I've gone, what am I doing wrong that I shouldn't be doing? Or, if I want to lose weight, stop doing this if you're a busy dad with a business, right? Something like that, for that type of niche is going to really get your attention, okay? But it's also going to talk to a level of client that is going to want that type of knowledge and service and the feeling at the end of it. So that's the last point that we obviously really dug into. So when you're looking at your content, are you making sure that you are going in and obviously making sure that the hooks are really good, and then obviously making sure that you're delivering it in a way where it's going to attract that ideal client? And the third thing was the identity around the business, right? Now, for a lot of people, if you're trying to market to a certain type of person, I've always felt like you need to somewhat wear their shoes. You need to know what they're about, who they are, but you also need to show up as that type of person. You see, if you're scruffy as hell and you look like you don't care, are you going to attract people that have really got that high level of life? Typically not. Unless you have something really unique and let's say visually you're just someone who's quite attractive and is going to draw people in naturally, you've got to make sure that you're showing up with that level of identity and service into your business so that then you can get that clear message across. For a lot of people, when they're trying to do content and they're trying to create good content and get that ideal client in, if you're not showing up and thinking like them, it typically becomes so much harder to do because you're trying to be one person and trying to attract a completely different type of person. If I was trying to attract menopausal women, I probably wouldn't go out wearing vests every day. I would probably dress a little bit smarter or tidier. If I was trying to talk to someone that was maybe it was a more of affordable program, would I film it in an area where it kind of connected with them well, right? You've got to show with the identity of who you're trying to coach, right? You need to think like them, be like them, and live and breathe it, because it's so much easier for you to then generate the content and think of ideas and actually attract that type of person, because it's just going to combine. You see, if I was trying to talk to 16-year-old girls and I'm dressed in a suit ready to go out to do law, and I was talking about doing hairdressing for 16-year-olds, they're going to be like, who the hell is this, right? Whereas obviously if I was, if I was doing young children's hair, right, I would want to make sure I was more approachable so they felt safe and they felt like they could do that, right? Now, I'm not saying go out and attract 16-year-old girls. I've just said that name and then I suddenly realised that could sound a bit weird. But the whole point of this is if you're trying to attract a certain type of demographic, not only do you need to talk and know what they do, but you also need to show up as that in yourself. And this falls back into a conversation I had with a separate client yesterday and this happens quite a lot, when you're trying to move yourself up and trying to attract higher price points, what had happened was and it's a completely different client with this, right? She's an actor and she wanted to help other struggling actors who wanted to get their confidence up to go and stand on stage and get auditions, right? But she got to a point where she was getting more auditions herself and wanted to push the business on. But she wanted to attract high paying clients that typically weren't needing so much of her and probably had a little bit more cash to spend. So what we did is we looked at this and I said, well, why don't we just change the angle on this a little bit, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be actors, but you've got the confidence to stand on stage, use your voice, use your body, wear whatever they want you to wear in the shows. How does that relate to someone who has to stand up and do presentations, or, like a PE teacher that has to present to a class, or someone who's a CEO that's doing big board meetings, or maybe has to go live on TV? Can you attract that type of demographic? Because if you can connect with them well, you're still working with the same type of people that are high performers, that are looking to get the best out of themselves, that are having more confidence. But maybe it's not trying to get their first acting job. Maybe it's actually trying to make sure their presentation goes well so the business doesn't fold, or they can attract new investors. So when you're thinking about creating this content, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to radically change who you are, But what you need to really think about is if you're trying to attract a certain type of person, what type of language, what type of angle do you want to go at? And if you've got a business in place that already works with that, you just need to think about who else could fit into that demographic and fit in nicely. So you can twist it a little bit and then target at people with a similar type of problems and pain points, but at a higher level. They'll still have those issues. So instead of standing on stage and doing an audition for a new play, they're doing an audition to maybe get a big sponsorship in their business or sell a part of their business to get more investment to grow the business. They're the types of things where people know the pressure, know the demands in them, and have the money to put behind it because they know that will help them and work for them. So I hope you found this episode useful. I'm going to wrap it up there. Like I said, I'm trying to help you guys obviously really think about creating content and creating it for a better audience and obviously attracting higher paying clients. If you found this useful, make sure you subscribe. If you've got any further questions, just reach out to me on Instagram @BenPaulMark and I will help you work a way around to obviously get you the answers that you need.